Hello Carpologists, I'm Luke, and today you join me at the moment it's alright, but a pretty wet and windy Dawford Pool. Now, it's a pool you might not have heard about yet, but in the next couple of years you're going to hear quite a bit about it. This is the latest in the open access series, so this venue is actually available to anyone, and it's actually an exclusive booking venue. So it's not a day ticket, but it's still not a syndicate. So you can have a maximum of 4 anglers on here, you can book a week, and I believe it's £800 for that week. So £200 each for a whole week's fishing. It can't be bad, especially when you find out a little bit more about this place and what's in here. Now, we'll be speaking to Ed, the owner, and obviously the guy that runs it tomorrow is going to give us the lowdown, a lot more information about it, about the stocking, about the size of the lake, how the lake bed is, about how we obtained the lake, and pretty much everything you need to know about the venue. So stay tuned for that, you'll find out a bit more tomorrow. But I'm actually joined by a special guest. We've got Stu Lennox with us, and you might recognise that name. He's been doing the open access series actually within the mag itself. He's going to be doing a written article, so I'll be a guest in his written article, and then he's going to be a guest in this video. So it should work out quite nicely. There's loads of really nice fish to go for, so fingers crossed we might get amongst them.
So we're just coming into the first evening of our trip. It's been a bit of a manic day really. Arrived about 8 o'clock this morning, and I feel like I've just chased fish around since then. Every spot had fish on it, either active or not active. Some were feeding, some weren't, but they've been very finicky and very shy. So when I first turned up, I found 4 fish in a little pod in the swim we're currently in. 3 dark fish and one that was quite clayey looking. So I chased them around and I was flicking single mixers at them and the odd biscuit, and they just weren't interested. They drifted down into the bay off to my right. So I tried to get them going in there again, slowly trickling the odd biscuit in. And Ed, the owner, suggested that when he feeds them with mixers, he feeds them in big scoopfuls and to give that a go. So I decided to give that rather than the sort of sneaky, gently feel my way in. I decided to throw them in with a scoop. And he also suggested pimping them up or giving them a bit of an edge. So I took my mix of mixers, some 6mm, some 6mm krill, 11mm krill, all different bits and pieces. I coated them in some hemp oil to slick up the water and to add a bit of smell. And then I topped all that off with some krill powder. So I'd have the oil sort of dissipating across the surface and the little bits of krill powder going through the water. And I hoped that would sort of gee up these fish that weren't really interested. They were ignoring all my normal mixers and they were just drifting past them. I wanted to give them a real strong flavour and smell signature that they could lock into. So I started flicking those in and they were drifting over them, but the more drifts that I put in over the top of the fish, the more stimulated they began to appear. They were sort of charging around, they were starting to nose the odd biscuit, and then very slowly they started to take the odd biscuit. Nowhere near what I would normally want in a floater fishing situation, but I decided to make a cast anyway. They were taken most confidently underneath a little bush, so I waited for them to drift out, made a cast, dragged the controller itself into the pondweed because the wind was being a bit of a nuisance. So I anchored my floater in the weed and then just let my hook bait sit in this sort of main zone where they'd been taking the mixers. The fish drifted back in and I'd lost sight of my hook bait, so I just gave it the tiniest little tweak just to try and see which one was mine before the fish arrived. The hook bait dipped and the clayey looking fish that I'd seen 4 or 5 hours earlier turned and homed in on that sort of that little bit of movement, that activity, swam straight up to the hook bait and nailed it first time. I hit into it, and obviously a lot of these fish haven't been hooked yet, so absolute tore off down into the bay, round the back of a weed bed, round the back of another weed bed, and then lodged itself in a fallen branch. So luckily at the same time Ed had just turned up. He jumped in the boat, rowed out, and managed to free it from this branch and some of the worst weed beds, and then I was back in contact with it. Another quite hairy battle really for sort of 10 minutes in and out of the weed. Finally managed to slip the net under it, and it's one of the fish that I'm sure this lake will become famous for. They're relatively young fish, but they've darkened off beautifully in this really, really clear, weedy water. Low 20, about 22, 23 pounds, but immaculate, really dark and jet black. Beautiful fish. We did a few photos and we were already starting to get into the early evening. The day had gone by so fast chasing these fish around, so needed to then start thinking about evening and where I was going to put the rods for the night. Left hand rod was easy enough. We'd seen quite a bit of activity out in front of this area here, so that went in with a solid bag, a little sort of pimped krill wafter and a bit of corn, some bloodworm pellet, and I put a little bit of corn and hemp over the top, relatively short range. And then the right hand rod was up against the island. I'd had a lead around earlier and it was rock hard, about 2 feet deep, right up tight against the island. And because of that, I used a spoon. So about 16 meters, maximum length of the spoon, a little bit of hemp, a little bit of corn in the spoon itself, shipped that out, tipped that in, shipped back in another solid bag of bloodworm pellet. And this time I went for a few grains of corn. So Ed had given a bit of a heads up that a guy was down recently, he'd been catching well on corn. So I was feeding corn. I wanted to replicate that with a little bit of corn. So 2 bits of corn, piece of plastic to make sure the hair didn't pull through, into a solid bag and shipped it out against the island. And then we'll see what the night brings. 2 spots I'm really confident on. Rock hard drop, shallow. I can see them getting in there overnight and having a bit of a free feed on that corn. And then this rod out here, I see that being more of a morning bite where we saw the activity today when we arrived. So that's a 2 rod set. All we can do now is hope for the best.
So I've just managed to get my rods out for the night. It's been pretty wet most of the afternoon, to be honest, so I haven't been able to do a great deal of filming, but I'm hoping over the course of the weekend it will clear up a little bit, so it will allow us to get a bit more filming, a bit more footage from around the lake. But really nice to see that fish of Stu's earlier. Awesome looking fish, and like I say, when I said in the intro that you're going to hear a lot about this place, it's because of fish like that. And to be honest, that fish has only been stocked into this water for about, I think it's about 8 months now. If they're coming out like that already, they're just going to get darker and bigger and look better and better month on month. So full of anticipation for tonight. I'm really hoping to get into the stock. From what I can gather, there's about 50 fish in here, and they range from just about scraping double figures all the way up to about 36 pounds. So there's loads to go for, and like I say, they're only going to get bigger, especially in the conditions that they've got. They've got loads of naturals as well. So it really is a place to watch out for. Now, Dawford Pool, like I say, is not really on the radar too much yet, but you'll be seeing a lot about this in the coming months and years, where a lot more people coming down, because it's actually opening, I believe, next week. They've got the first booking to actually have their first week session on here, so it'll be interesting to see how the first few weeks do. And like I say, they're all pretty new fish, so a lot of them haven't even been caught before. So awesome fish, awesome stock to get into. But yeah, like I say, I've got my rods out for the night. I've got one quite tight to the island. I've done a bit of leading around earlier. Didn't want to do too much because it's one of them places where it's such a quiet, intimate pool and they haven't really seen any angling pressure whatsoever. Just didn't want to spook them. Now, yeah, like I say, I found a little spot just off the island. It's actually quite hard. The rest of the lake is pretty silty, so to find a nice hard spot amongst that, fingers crossed that'll do something tonight. The right hand rod I've got just behind me. There's quite a bit of weed in here. There's a few weed beds, and then there's a little gap in between 2 weed beds. So it doesn't seem like a natural gap in the weed. So it could be a little patrol route for the fish. So I'm hopeful with both of the rods. And like I say, after seeing Stu's fish earlier, I really want to get amongst them myself. But we'll see what the night brings.
So this is the rod that I just spooned out to the island about 20 minutes ago. I wasn't entirely happy with the line lay, and it had a few liners. I wasn't content to go to bed with it as it was. So whipped it back in, tied up another solid bag, spooned it out to that little hard patch that we found by the island. And yeah, we were just turning in for the night. About 20 minutes later, it ramps off with this little chap. So after that fish we had last night, just as it got dark, about sort of 9 p.m, I was able to use a spoon and get the rig straight back on the same spot using the exact same tactic. little solid bag with a couple of pieces of corn, a handful of corn and hemp over the top. Had a few liners, a few occurrences through the evening, and then first thing this morning we were woken by this fish. Big chunky dumpy double, sort of probably 14, 15, 16 pound. Did try to charge off into the down the channel into the bay, as did the fish last night. Was able to turn it, bring it back in, and here it is. So we get a few more photos, slip it back, and then go about the day.
Hi guys, I'm Ed Matthews and I run a number of fisheries in the Staff Shropshire borders kind of area. One of those is a new water I've just set up. It's called Dawford Pool. It's a small intimate water with three islands on it, which split the lake up quite nicely. It's just under 2 acres, maximum depths of about 6.5 feet. I first came across the water a number of years ago because I farmed some fish in the area and I rent some pools off the same farmer, and I fell in love with the pool from the off really. But it was completely overgrown. There was trees, bushes, it was quite weedy, access was minimal, the brambles, stingers everywhere. So I've really had to go to town, put a lot of graft in, creating the paths, cutting the trees out, letting the light into the water to benefit the water quality and everything. And then the next step was otter fencing it, because we're right next to a brook. Didn't want to take that risk because I value my fish very much. So otter fence, then I stocked it. Now I was quite fortunate in the way that I've got a small fish farm and I've been selling carp for a number of years. And it was quite nice last year to be going into my stock ponds, hand picking some of the lovely fish that I've grown over the years. And I think you'll agree when you look at the pictures of them, they really are special fish, and anyone who comes down here is going to have a great time catching a real range of fish, from ziplins, normal linears, fully scaled, leathers, and I've got some real beastly commons too. Now, stocking wise, I've stocked about 50 fish so far, and that's what I'm opening with. Let the fishery settle down, let them get it out of the way. This coming winter, it's August now, but I've got plans this winter to put another 20 or 30 fish in. There might be quite a large fish I'm hoping to come out and put in here. Fingers crossed, a big common. But at the moment, the lake record is a 36-pound mirror that's gone in. There's a number of other 30s as well. I've stocked majority of 20s, and then there's a few doubles as well. So yeah, real mixed range of fish. It's 2 rod limit. It's for lake exclusives only, so a maximum of 4 lads can book it for the week. If one person wants to pay and come on their own or split it between them, they're welcome to. It's £800 for the week, Saturday to Saturday, and it's just common sense rules, full lake bookings. There's no individuals from different places can come, so you're with your mates, you have a good time down here. There's also availability from the local pub. They'll do deliveries for you, and it's only a short walk away anyway. So if you wanted to wind in, go and have a bite to eat, and that's an option. All unlucky mats, nets and slings are all provided, so it's laid on from that point of view. And from a facilities point of view, because we're down here for a week fishing, there's a gas shower, an eco gas shower, and an eco composting toilet, all clean and tidy, all fit to use. You know, if you want to bring your girlfriend and pay for it for the week, then you're welcome to. It's all there. That's about it really. I've put a lot of graft into this place and I hope you're going to enjoy it.
Right, well, unfortunately the first night didn't go too well for me, and obviously nothing happened whatsoever. Really nice to see that Stu had another one overnight. a little bit smaller than the first one. Obviously his first one was just, I think it's about 22 pound, and then the second one was about 12, 13 pound that he had overnight. He also had a third waiting in the net for me first thing this morning, so he's doing pretty well over on that island, but I'm still yet to get amongst them. To be honest, I haven't had the rods out at all today. I saw at bite time hoping that something might happen, but unfortunately it didn't. And then today I've reeled in, I've been going around the lake doing loads of filming, loads of shots for the magazine article as well. So I haven't had a chance to really get the rods out at all, but now it's just gone 7 o'clock. Got both rods out, got a little bit of bait out as well. My right hand rod, I'm sticking to my guns, I'm keeping it on that margin spot because it did feel nice and hard amongst all the silt. And the left hand rod I've actually moved just to the left of the island, because first thing this morning there was a few fish doshing out kind of between the island and the left hand bank. So I'm hoping I'll get amongst them there. If they come back again tomorrow morning, it's just under 10 wraps, and all the way across it's kind of light silt and a little bit of weed, things like that. So it's not the cleanest of bottoms on the lake. However, the spot that I've found seems to be a little bit harder, a little bit cleaner, and just past a bit of a weed bed. So fingers crossed that's a spot that's been cleared naturally by the carp. So I've put a little bit of bait over it. Didn't want to put too much out because again I don't want to cause too much disturbance on here. But I'm hoping it might just be enough to warrant a bite. So I'm still confident, still going into tonight full of anticipation. And after seeing more of these fish coming out, I really do want a piece of the action. But we'll see what tonight brings, and hopefully I'll have something in the sling for the morning.
So we're now coming into our second night, and today has been, I'd say, frustrating. So the fish did turn up on me this morning where I thought they were going to, fizzed up all over the spot. Clearly quite a lot of feeding over there, a few liners, but that rod just didn't materialise. I did have those two fish that you've already seen, one just before, well, just as it got dark, and one first thing this morning. So I decided to put that rod back out. No need to change that. The little bits of corner working well. I'm going to push that up against the island using the spoon and just replicate exactly what I did last night. That worked well, two fish, hopefully same result tonight. The other rod, I'm going to move it off that spot. So they were on me, but I don't think I'm presenting how I want to present on that spot. I have fished hinges through the day, so I came off with a solid bag. I fished hinges over whole boilies to see if I could get some response from that, and that's just not worked. What I have seen last night was the channel in front of me here starts to get a bit busy and a few fish move into here, into dark. I had a lead around today when it's quiet, and I found a clearish spot. Not clean, but clearer than the chod and the weed around it. So I'm going to go in on that. And I'm going to go on corn again. So the corn's worked on the other rod. I'm going to try corn on this. Because it's not so clean, I've critically balanced that with a little piece of foam, and that's just going to gently waft down and lie on top of the little bit of chod that is lying around. I'm going to put that in with the spoon again, try and keep everything nice and quiet. I think it's so small and intimate here. As soon as they know they're being fished for, even though they're virgin fish, they have been on edge. So I'm going to go in with there, same, almost replicating what's on the other rod. A little bit of corn, a little bit of hemp, a few crushed active krill, and then put it all in with a spoon, a little bit of balanced corn over the top, and hopefully see what the night brings. So early morning wake up calls don't come much better than this. This is one of the real sort of Dawford gems that I think is going to make this place really popular moving forward, and I can see it being fully booked for years to come. Absolute gem of a linear. Had that first thing this morning, absolutely rattled off, hairy little battle in that bay, and I couldn't believe it when it slipped over the cord. There's actually a linear that looks almost identical for this, but just pushing 30 pounds, so I'm sure it won't be long before this fish catches up with that. We've got a couple of hours left, put this one back and see what the last few hours bring. my top 3 tips for anyone that's going to make their way down. First of all, it is quite a small lake and the island can be quite sociable, but my advice would be to spread out. So between myself and Luke, you know, we're at opposite ends of the lake and we've still managed to push them into the far corner now where there's no line. So by having someone dotted around the lake, you are going to move the fish around and everyone's going to have a chance over the course of your stay. Second tip would be stay flexible and don't come down with any preconceived ideas. I definitely did. I looked at the stock and the size and I had a certain way I thought it was going to pan out in my head. In the end, it was little bits of corn, solid bags up against an island that's done all the bites. But on another day, it could be stalking in the edge, could be beds of bait in open water, could be floater fishing. So make sure you have all that with you. And finally, be prepared for what I call small water frustration. So we have seen fish everywhere throughout the lake, throughout the session. So finding them is not hard. Getting them to pick up a hook bait is quite tricky. So just be ready and be prepared to see these immaculate fish in the water, but a little bit of thought does need to go into how to catch them.
So unfortunately, my time here at Dawford Pool has come to an end. It's been a pretty tricky couple of days. I know Stu's managed to do pretty well. He's got amongst him, and I think he's had 4 out now, up to about £22, and every single one of them has been immaculate. Obviously, you'd expect that being quite new fish. However, you wouldn't expect the colour of them to be quite as dark as they are. So they really are fish to go for. And even though I've blanked, it hasn't put me off at all, and I can't wait to come back. I'll definitely be making the 4-hour drive, which it is for me, to get down here again. And I mean, when the fish are looking like that, you've got to put that time in, and you've got to persevere, because if one of them comes into your net, then it's really is a fish well worth catching. So like I said, I've been unlucky this time. Both times I've brought the rods back in from the night session, they've been absolutely clean. So whether they just weren't in the right place, the fish weren't actually taking normal bait, because obviously they haven't been fished for that often. I was putting out a mixture of boilies, pellets, a bit of all sorts really, like a ground bait mix to kind of cover the boilies that have been soaking in the glug. But like I say, unfortunately it wasn't to be. There is a hell of a lot of naturals in this lake at the moment. Like I say, where the fish haven't really been fished for, maybe going down the boilie route wasn't the right approach. All the Stu's ones ended up coming, apart from the one off the top, ended up on sweet corn, so much more natural based bait. Kind of fits in with how the fish are probably feeding naturally, with all the natural food in here as well. So top marks to him for managing to get a few out. We had a little bit of a tactic going on when we first got here. Stu was set up on the island, he got here just before me, and we kind of worked out that if we were both set up on the island, we'd probably end up pushing the fish further away from us. So we fished kind of opposite ends of the lake, hoping to keep them fish moving around and hoping to have a bit more chance. And whether that paid off, whether it worked in Stu's favour that I was down here, probably causing too much commotion, pushed them all over to him and then he had a few. Or, like I say, if we were both on the island, we might have had more or we might have had less. So it's one of them things. But massive thanks to Ed for letting us fish down here and obviously giving us access for a couple of days. But like I say, with this pool, you're going to hear a lot about it in the coming months and years. So these fish are only going to go from strength to strength. But thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this, obviously make sure you like and subscribe to CARPology on YouTube and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss any videos. But for now, like I say, thanks for watching and I'll see you again soon.